David, or David, as I should call you now, I guess, is a sort of friend of Rotterdam. I think you were sort of born here as a filmmaker, maybe. And I was thinking maybe before we talk about film, we talk a bit about your history with cinema, a bit of your background, so we will understand later on why you made a film in Asia. Can you say something about your relation with the film festival and how you sort of grew up here?
Well, the first film that I've ever done was called Beat, and it was something that we made as a group of enthusiastic young film students when we were going to the Film Academy in Amsterdam. And I remember that it was kind of a production where we would also, like this one again now, have absolutely no money.
Right.
And every weekend we would shoot something and then edit something and shoot some more and edit more, and it went on like that for a year. And in the end, the film was selected to Rotterdam. And I remember at that time for me that was like that was big news. It was very big news.
How young were you?
I was, I think I was at that time
24.
No, 22 or 23 or something. So just in second year of the film school, and well, the film here did very well. It was in the main program at that time, and it was one of these films. I think that there was kind of a buzz in the festival about the film, and that was very, very exciting. And also that's why the film, which was made with no money, just by a group of students afterwards, it was picked up and it was released in the cinema, and it was released on DVD. So it was just, you know, this student thing that suddenly became a real film, and that got written about and everything. And that was really, I think, the launch of my career as a filmmaker. And after that, I've always come back to Rotterdam, except for one film that went to Cannes, which I couldn't resist.
Right, of course.
But now with this film, I'm back here, and well, of course, I'm cutting it short. I've also been in the Tiger competition with the first film that I've done in Asia with also a very small budget, but with somewhat of a real budget, like 400,000 euros.
That was Shanghai
That
Trance.
was Shanghai Trance. That was in the Tiger competition here, and then I was in. Then there was a special year where there was a Return of the Tiger Award competition, which I won with the film Club Zeus, which was in 2011. Yeah.
And here we are again. Yeah.
And here we are again.
But I also believe that when you were a student at the Film Academy, you came here before you were making films, also as a sort of a student of cinema, and I guess you sort of got a sort of small preference maybe for Asian cinema. Can you maybe say something about this?
Oh, I remember when we were in the Film Academy, our professor Ernie Tay, who lectured film history, he said that, or he demanded that we would go here and see all the tigers.
Right.
So I was also that's basically in the first year of the Film Academy where I discovered the Rotterdam Film Festival, and very quickly I got extremely fanatical about it. I mean, it was the vibe that was here, and very much the focus that it was really, you know, about the films and not about the red carpet or anything, but it just really this kind of atmosphere where you could also very easily meet filmmakers, and it just very quickly, I think already the first or second year that I came here, it just turned into you know, huge adventures, and even also I remember meeting some Japanese friends here, and even going to Japan and staying at their house, and so it just led to all kinds of things very quickly, and it was at that moment still my dream to once have a film here, which very quickly happened, like a year later. But you know, it's also the kind of festival where you discover things that are unplanned. I remember I discovered Ho Xiaoshen, this filmmaker from Taiwan, who had because I wanted to go somewhere else, but it was sold out, so I was like, okay, what's playing here now? And I walked into Millennium Mambo, which was, you know, a film that deeply influenced me, and that definitely affected the way I think about cinema and the way I shoot cinema as well. So.
But I also guess Tsai Ming Liang, for instance.
Yes, and Tsai Ming Liang, and Api Chapong, Virasata Kul, and Jadzanke very much. Actually, I was a very, very big fan of Jadzanke films. I saw them here. I saw like this Unknown Pleasures, The World. I saw here by Jadzanke, and just a few years later, I went to China myself to shoot the film, and I found myself working with half of his team, with his sound man and his co-producer, and
That might be a good bridge already to how to describe a cloud, because I think the actress who is playing the mother is also the mother in almost all of the Tsai Ming Liang films.
Yeah, Louis Jing. Yeah.
Can you say something about how you sort of got her for your film? Did you actually pay her? Or
No, we didn't pay anyone. I didn't make. Nobody made any money.
Right. Not yet.
I don't think it's coming either, to be honest. It's not the kind of film where you suddenly hit the jackpot.
Maybe you can go around asking for money.
Yeah, exactly. That's the level we're talking about here. Yeah. No, yeah, Louis Jing. How did this happen? You know, at one point I was at a party with an actress that I knew. I was in Taiwan. I had already shot Are You There, and we were at a premiere party, and I met her at this premiere party, and I already wanted her to play the aunt in Are You There, the previous film I shot in Taiwan. But she was not available at that time because she was shooting with Tsai again. I think it was Visage at that point. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, we met each other and we knew each other, and also her agent is very friendly and is a very nice person. So it was, you know, when I was shooting this, I just contacted them, and they totally supported us, and they you know, gave us all the time that she could spare.
So how long was the shoot? I mean,
well, the shoot for Louis Jing was only about a week or so, I think. We condensed those, or we put those days together, and we shot them back to back, and we cut the amount of location she would be needed. But
so you gave her a couple of dinners, basically.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. But the shoot of our whole film was very long. Exceptionally long for a no-budget film, which is usually, you know, rushed very quickly and everything. But we've shot for a month, really. But the whole thing was really focused basically in 1 month, where my producer, my Dutch producer, and the cameraman basically jumped in to save me from, you know, a disaster shoot, which was already disastrous from the beginning because there was no money, and I just, you know, decided to do it from I think 10,000 euros that I got from one fund, which they gave me to just develop the script. You know, it was okay, David, sit down for half a year and write all this down, and, you know, here's some money to support you. But instead of doing that, I kind of wrote the script with a camera and shot it of that straight away.
You talked about going to China first, and now, of course, you made a film in Taiwan, the second film in Taiwan. Why would you actually do that? I can understand that you see a lot of Asian films and you like them, but why actually go there?
Well, you know, for me, even when I was making a film in Holland, like the first film Beat, it was always like doing something that's like capturing the spirit of the time in a way. And whenever I do a film, I always ask myself, firstly, why would this film have to be made now? And why does it have to be made here or there? So this is always a question that really drives me. And, you know, so since it was always very contemporary anyway, the subject matter and how modernization affects my generation so, you know, I was just feeling that I read a lot in the newspaper about China, and I read things that, for example, in a city like Shanghai, the city was changing just you know, incredibly fast, and there was this amount of change happening there that cost us here in the West 50 years, and there it happened in 10 years. So I was very interested in how that affected people, this very quick development. And also since I was from a family that was traveling throughout my childhood,
Right.
it didn't seem that big a deal to me personally to just go somewhere and look for it.
Right.
Because I grew up partly in Africa, partly in New York, partly in a few countries in Europe.
So you're the son of
So
a diplomat, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah. So you know, it wasn't that big a deal for me, you know, to just you know, okay, well then let's go over there and see if this thing see if I can capture this thing.
Yeah.
And
Did you capture it? You think?
yeah, I think I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really think I did. But I think because this requires a very serious effort. If you go there and you know you shoot the film being a tourist,
Right.
you know it's gonna be a tourist film. But if you stay there for several years and you're open to experience and you let it become your own life, which is also the reason why I shot several films in Asia and not just one, because when I was making the first one, it cost me 3 years, and I was there and I partly learned the language a bit, and I had friends there, and you know it becomes your life as well. And at that moment, when the things you see in a society have also affected you personally, and you know this from the inside, you know what drives people, you know what is different about people than in your own country. I think, you know, when you really get involved after, it takes a few years, but then it's even an advantage to be the outsider, because you always remain the outsider. It's never been my goal, or it never will be my goal, to kind of integrate and become Chinese.
So you're sort of in between, basically.
Yeah, in a way I am. And but I think mentally, and my way of thinking in the world, and also the philosophical background that I have, I studied philosophy before and everything. I think all that is very Western, and you know, I'm holding on to that. So that's also. So that's why, yeah, it becomes kind of a hybrid way of existing, being there and being here and being there and being here.
You mentioned that you wanted to capture the, let's call it, the zeitgeist, the spirit of the time.
Yeah.
And how in this film did you capture the spirit of the time? How did you think about it? What did you want to achieve?
Well, you know, I mean, the first film I made in Taiwan was very contemporary, because it was about how people connect virtually in Second Life, and so that brought me to Taiwan. But that was something that actually could have been anywhere. That could have been in Mexico even, or it could have been in anywhere where it's exotic for a Dutch video gamer to go. Yeah. So we went to Taiwan because I saw a few things there on a trip that I thought would be very good exotic elements. But while I was there, and while I, for the last few years, have been there many times, I really gotten to know this specific situation of the island of Taiwan very well. And what I discovered is that even more than in contemporary China, it's a place where there's this huge, where the situation is subtly different than in China, because in China everything is just changing very fast, and history is kind of crushed under it. But when the Cultural Revolution happened, from China there was kind of a Noah Ark of culture and tradition that went to this little island of Taiwan, and it's still there. So, but at the same time, Taiwan has been very modernized and is democratic, and so it's actually a very, very modern country, which also has very, very traditional influences from a country, from a culture that is, you know, more Chinese than China.
Right.
So it's both very traditional, which leads to all this, with also some what we might call superstitions, and it's also very modern and developed, and everybody's with their phones, and it's just like here, in some ways even further than what we have here. So it's this kind of, you know, place where superstition and modernity coexist in a way that I find fascinating. Because here, I mean, if I say to a friend, or if a friend, you know, just a bunch of Dutch guys, and somebody says that, you know, we shouldn't go swimming in the sea because it's August, and, you know, that's the spirit season, and, you know, then the ghost might pull you down. You know, that's something that's completely incompatible with our entire way of thinking and believing. How could you believe in something like that? But over there, it's still, you know, people are, you know, their parents are often very much still with this kind of tradition, and they themselves have come from that, and they're you know they think differently, but they're still tempted to.
Right. As you
to
see,
have
as you
this,
see
yes.
the trajectory of the girl, who sort of
Exactly, it's
first
the
of all sees-
trajectory of the girl. Yeah.
Yeah. And is this also has this also to do with maybe a clash between the life in the city, which is sort of modern life,
Yeah.
as you shoot Taipei as a very
Yeah.
modern city,
Yeah.
and life in the countryside. Even they go to a remote island
Yeah.
where there are evil spirits lurking.
Yeah, I'm always trying to create some very interesting contrast or very visual contrast in the films. Because I don't want to rely on plot too much. So it's just kind of the tension between these environments and the themes that they're connected to, which kind of creates the tension in the story.
Yeah.
So it's exactly that, yeah.
Yeah. And is that also your story? Can we surmise that? Is it your interest in the spiritual maybe, or what you call the sixth sense in the film? Does that reflect your own interests? Maybe go beyond Western thinking and being more open to Eastern philosophy maybe?
Yeah, it's something that obviously has waar ik mee bezig ben,
you're involved in, you're thinking about,
which I've been thinking about very much. You know, I mean, I think in a way, you know, every film that I make is really about how people try to connect to each other. And there might be something that comes in between it, or something that tears it apart. Like, for example, in Shanghai Trends, it's this growing metropolis which is evolving so fast that, you know, there's a huge gap between the children and the parents, and also the children among, or the teenagers, or in Shanghai Trends, the 20ers that are there. So in that case, you know, it's also about the connections they have to each other. But then there's the city in between. Well, in Are You There, for example, that's very much also, you know, how do people try to connect with all this kind of online ways of communicating? How does that kind of make everything less transparent, or maybe more transparent? It researches that. And this film, just in a very direct, very pure philosophical way, just, you know, really investigates what is there between people that are extremely close to you. What might there be that binds us, you know, beyond the senses? And if there's nothing, then we are really like all trapped in our own air bubble.
But the biologist says that there's the biggest distance between two people is between two minds.
Yeah.
So how do you bridge the gap? How do you do that?
With imagination.
Right. With fantasy animals. No.
No, I mean, for me, really, I mean, that's also why I chose to have this traditional world in the village and this city, this urban neon world. But it's because people in both worlds are both looking for something magical in a way. Right. The mother is looking for magic in a way that the real world might, you know, that there might really exist magic in the real world. There might be ghosts, or that she might be suddenly, you know, gifted with a super sense, or another sense. And she in the city, Liling in the city, is also searching for something, like in her art or in her music, or you see that she's also searching for something. And this biologist, which is, you know, kind of representing the scientific approach, but he himself also is applying his science to something fantastical, which, you know, with a speculative
and he might be lost in the end. He might
yes.
not believe in science anymore, I guess.
Yes, that is one interpretation. Actually, one of the things that I myself really like about this film is that in creating the story, there are certain loose ends, which also very much in the editing came about, and that give rise to, you know, to questions that I also don't really know how to answer. There's a few moments in the film which are my favorite moments, but and all of them actually have never been written down on paper.
Right.
They were all discovered in the doing.
Are
in
you
the
referring
making.
specifically to the ending, basically when she goes to the island and
That was
enters the cave? And
that was always there, or at least the cave was not always there, but what was always there is that she would see the creature. That was always there. But what I'm referring to in like moments that I find most powerful are, for example, moments like when she's lying down with Mother and Mother opens her eyes. And there's this incredible tension because of that, because Mother is blind, yet she's opening her eyes, and Li Ling is now the one asleep. Yeah. And then we go, through this tunnel, and the tunnel leads to the city, and there's just this low tone of music, and we, enter this trance of this kind. For me, this is extremely powerful in a way, but I can't really say why it works, or I can't really say what exactly it says. I don't know, but I think that's exactly what cinema excels in. That's what you can reach certain areas of the brain, perhaps, that are beyond language. It's for me. It's even like the whole way that film funding is constructed right now. It's like, okay, why don't you think of everything you want to do, and then write it all down on paper, and then submit it to us, and then we'll say, okay, you can make it or you can't make it. But for me, it's like, if I can write it all down on paper in a way that's totally convincing, then why would I make the film?
You don't discover anything anymore.
Yeah, you're
if
looking for something beyond language.
But
in film.
if you say I'm looking for something beyond ending, why would you show the animal at the end? Because I was slightly disappointed that you showed us the fantasy animal. I'm sorry, I don't know about you, but why did you do that?
It's the first. You're the first one that says that.
Sorry.
No. So for you, it might have ended in the cave.
It would have been more powerful if you hadn't shown the animal to me. It's into the unknown.
It took us a lot of trouble.
Take it out
without budget to have that animal there. And
you
now
should
you
take it out.
I
give you the money to take it out.
Let's talk about something else. So
right. Are there any questions? If there are questions among the audience, you can walk to this microphone, or otherwise you will not be on film. You will not be here for the afterlife.
How do your films do in China, and how does cinema doing in China right now?
And Taiwan.
It's my films haven't. Well, one of the films I've done, Shanghai Trance, was actually released in China, but it was censored, so it was cut.
What was censored? Do you?
Well, things where a girl was doing a pole dance and all that fun stuff, but but also shots where the city was dirty and everything. But that was in the run up to the Olympics, so I think they were also extra cautious to not show anything. It's totally different. In China or in Taiwan, they're completely different film industries, and now they're starting to talk to each other more. They're starting to Taiwanese films may be distributed in China as well. But for my position in the Asian film industry is very difficult. I think it's very difficult, and also I don't really know if I want to integrate or want to be seen as like an Asian filmmaker. I'm obviously not. No. So I'm I'm just this kind of strange entity which is there, and
you're the fantasy animal.
Yeah. And it's hard to conquer a position in the industry there, but I think what might be happening is that the film industry might become more and more global, and it might, because also we see many filmmakers shoot in a totally different country, and there's more and more connections being made. The Cinemarts has been existing for 30 years now, but I think there is a tendency to where borders do open up more and more. And people just chase what they're fascinated with, beyond borders more and more. Yeah. But for now, it's not easy there. And mostly the films that I make them with European money, if there's any money. and then I take them back here, and they have a festival life here, and they're distributed in a few countries here and sold on DVD, and that's it. Everything except that one film, Shanghai Trends, which was released there quite big, I think, but it was cut. It was 20 minutes cut out of the film. There is another thing. I am right now developing my first film in China, which is also has a Chinese distributor on board, and it was in the Cinemark this year, and it's already 80% financed.
Okay.
And the first financing came from China for the first time. So we got €500,000 from China to shoot that film, and the other half is from, well, another quarter is from Holland, and another quarter is we're still looking for.
So co-productions, basically.
Yeah.
And we get you the last 20%. There's time for one last question. Who dares to ask the last question?
First, I'm from Taiwan. So my question is, in the film, the people use the Mandarin as the language, but if you want to talk about the gap between the generation in Taiwan, probably the local language and the Mandarin language could be another issue. So how do you think about this part? Yeah.
I think the question is, why didn't I use more Taiwanhua? Why didn't I use more local Taiwanese language? Because that would have been very suitable, for example, in the fisherman's village, for them to speak a more
dialect. Local,
yeah, more of a dialect. You know, yeah. Of course, I've been thinking about it, and also in the very beginning, you know, the island was going to take place in Lanyu. We were going to shoot in Lanyu, which is like a very small island under, and there's like more of an Aboriginal population. Basically, we didn't get it done to go so locally into this. The other reason why, when we did shoot now in this place, which was closer to Taipei, is, you know, it was difficult for us to. I think not all the actors spoke. Yes, also spoke Taiwanese, and it was already quite hard to get the main actress, which is actually from mainland China, to make her speak Putonghua, like to make her speak Chinese, like Mandarin Chinese, but to make her speak it in a way that sounds like she's from Taiwan, which is different than the dialect, which is more like a totally different language. But it was not possible to really go that authentic on this.
Maybe to wrap up, when I came here, I walked over the Erasmus Bridge, and because I saw your film, I noticed many clouds. Because I walked over the Erasmus Bridge. How would you describe a cloud?
You know, I've never thought. Everybody asks me this now. I've never thought about it.
I'm
really.
sorry.
I'm actually not somebody that stares up and describes clouds.
You should walk with me now over the bridge. And then
yeah, well, I mean, you know, every cloud is different. I mean, that's the.
There you have it.
Can't describe a cloud.
Right. That's a nice one to end on. Thank you very much for listening, and see you next year.
Yeah, thank you.
Dankjewel.